With all that said, let's start with the Pacific Division, and we're going to change things up. So we'll alternate on who leads us through it, but we're going to go in order of decreasing winning percentage, which I don't know who saw this coming. You're starting us off in the Pacific Division, and that's with who?
Yeah, it's the Sacramento Kings. Can we just pause for a second and appreciate that? Like it's amazing. Unless you picked their under, which I suspect we probably both did. We're gonna have to
Oh,
look
I
back
I
at that
smashed
poll.
the over on them.
What
I
were
thought
the
it was
what was it, like 33?
it was like 33 or 35, and I
Oh,
thought that
maybe
was
we
just
both
too
went
low.
over.
I can go check really quick while you're vamping, and I'll let you know who was smarter.
There'll be a whole pod. Don't waste the content, Dan. We'll use all that later. All right. So the idea here is we're going to kind of look at, what's the big question or what's the overarching idea for each of these teams. And to me, the Kings look, they're in playoff position. They're, up towards the top of the West. They're right there with anybody not named Memphis and Denver. So it's obviously a win now by situation, however you want to frame it. But to me, it's just how can they get the defense to improve? Because this is what we thought this team would be in a best case scenario, is where the offense is phenomenal, top 3, top 5 for almost this entire year. And the defense is basically the inverse of that. And so, they're not going to be able to match up against some of the teams that they're going to need to beat or compete with in a playoff series if they just don't have enough wing defense, particularly rim protection, all that stuff. So those are your targets. Those are the things they'd be looking for. I guess we're going to try to keep this kind of loose, but just thinking about them now, Sabonis is their interior defender. He's actually been better than you would expect, and based on his history at, deterring shots at the rim. They still give up a ton at the rim. But they also don't really have a big wing defender. Which of those two things do you think, all things being equal, what are you looking at as the bigger need positionally if we concede that it has to be a defensive upgrade?
I would go with the wing defender, just because are you going to play Sabonis with another rim protector? And if
Right.
you're not going to, I don't care as much about the minutes when Sabonis isn't on the court, quite frankly.
Yeah, I agree. I think too, like, we'll get into this a lot with other teams, but if your need is quote unquote like a change of pace at like backup center, for example, I mean, that's just in terms of the volume and in terms of like the impact of that player's contributions, you're talking just like a few minutes, every night. It's just not that big a deal. Whereas a wing, a rotation guy or a starter even, just going to be on the floor in every minute that matters, right? If you're a playoff bound team like the Kings, then that's what you're focused on. So I'd agree there. I think if you're looking at what they have to get something done, so they owe this 24 first rounder to Atlanta from the Kevin Herter deal.
I don't mean to laugh at, because that trade worked out well for them, but these like
Yeah.
pick protections that teams are doing right now, I don't know why. I think it's probably smart of the teams that are acquiring them to have them protected until the end of time. But I was going when we were putting together these sheets for this podcast, and I'll do a better job when we do the other divisions of talking about the criteria. And if you're watching on YouTube, you do have what Grant and I are using. It's just like we're not going through all of it. Grant kind of said that this is going to be more of a loose discussion. I will have a trade idea, or we will have a trade idea for every team. That is, if I'm the team making the call, like I'm the Kings, and I'm going to be calling and offering this trade. But you can look on YouTube and you can see all their salaries, pick commitments, if you're into that sort of thing. I apologize for not mentioning it at the top and for interjecting Grant here. But I'm just when we were going through and building this, the pick commitments. Well, I'm not even talking about the teams that have given up a multiple first round picks, but it's just like Detroit having, or Portland having the lottery protected pick to stay in the Western Conference just through 2028 is just it's so limiting in what
Yeah.
they can do now. So I apologize, but that's
No,
sort of where the Kings are at right now.
it is. And like, there are situations, Portland, I think being one of them, where it's like, well, job number one in your, or the, item one on your trade deadline priority list is, let's see if I can swing a deal to like adjust the protections on this pick so we can actually move another one, or which is just kind of I can't remember. The Heat did it last year, but before that, I really can't remember a significant example of where a team had to do that. And now there's several situations where, because of all these like carryover protections and encumbrances that just don't go away necessarily, and it just ruins, it compromises your whole draft for years on end. So the Kings have those pick issues. If you're looking on YouTube, so this 24 first, it's lottery protected, and then top 12, and then top 10. and it turns into seconds in 26 and 27 if not conveyed, that just kind of ties them up. Fortunately, the Kings do have some expiring / unwanted salaries they can move. I know you've listed here as Rashawn Holmes is the most likely player to be traded. What a turnaround, by the way, because I'm sure that we both liked his contract when he signed it.
I called it. I said his agent should get fired because I thought it was a steal. But
Right, yeah, good for the King from the Kings' perspective. It seemed like a bargain, but there was some off-court stuff last year, and it just they have Sabonis now, and he's just at best the second guy and has not really even been the backup center for most of this year. So you can throw him in there. You can throw Terrence Davis in there. Harrison Barnes is someone we've talked about in previous deadlines, and he's got 18 plus million expiring, but that I can't imagine he's going anywhere because right now he's probably the closest thing they have to like a 3-and-D combo forward. Keegan Murray can shoot it, but you're probably not trading him, even if you are in a win now situation. So there's ways to get salary. There's ways if you're creative enough to get pick equity. But I mean, target wise, like I just, they're going to be after the same list of like 3 to 5 guys we'll go through for every wing forward starved team. So your Bogdanoviches, your Crowders, your Jalen McDaniels, like that kind of thing makes the most sense for me. There'll just be a lot of competition for those guys and anybody else even remotely similar.
Yeah, and it's there because of the pick that we're talking about in 2024 going to Atlanta, and it's protected. Theirs in comparison isn't so long as others. It's only protected through 2026, but like that means you can't guarantee a first until 2028, and the soonest you can give up a first is 2026, and so that takes you out of the running of a lot of high profile guys. You almost need the seconds to work out. Would you agree that even though based off his contract, I think a lot of people think it's bad now that Rashawn Holmes is the most likely player to be dealt?
I mean, just because of the number, 11.2 this year, 12.9 player option next year, which he will 1,000,000% pick up because his stock has dropped so far. I just don't think he's going to get that back on a, if he were to go into free agency this summer, I just can't imagine he would approach, like, is he even a mid-level guy? He's probably a taxpayer mid-level guy, maybe. So I guess so. They're good players right now. The types of guys you would think about moving. Barnes is one. You're not moving Herter. Trey Lyles actually plays for them, and he's an expiring at like two
He's
and a
been
half.
good too.
Right. And $2.5 million. That's just not going to get you what you need. Davion Mitchell, maybe. I don't know what the value of like a one position defense first / defense only point guard is, but rookie scale deal. You could see someone be interested in him. But he plays too. So, it's not like they have, other than Holmes, it's not like they have significant salary just kind of sitting there to move, because Alex Len is in that group too. But what does he make? Like just under 4, I think. So that's tough to get there. So it's got to be Holmes probably. I don't know who else it would be.
Yeah, and also if we're talking about them needing defense, you go with Terrence Davis maybe expiring. If we're talking about them needing defense, you can't really give up Davion Mitchell. So the trade that I came up with for them, and we'll scroll down here for if people want to see it on the screen. I have the Kings receive Jay Crowder, and the Suns receive Rashawn Holmes, a 2024 second round pick, and Portland's 2025 second round pick and cash to offset because they are taking out on money, and that would increase their tax bill. And the Kings have, I think, all their cash left, so they could offset that. So you get Sacramento's 2024 second, Portland's 2025 second, and you offset the tax difference for Rashawn Holmes.
I mean, I love that from the Kings' perspective. If I'm the Suns, and we'll get to them eventually here, I think I'm going to at least try to get, even if it's like a fake first rounder. I think I want a first rounder somehow for Crowder, and that might just be totally unrealistic. But yeah, if I'm the Kings, take my money. I'm doing this immediately.
The other thing I kind of thought of with them was, like, could you get, if you're going to help Philly duck the tax, would you take on Korkmaz, get Matisse Thybulle, and then you send out Terrence Davis is expiring, and would you be willing to give up Metu in that deal? Or even like, would the Sixers take anybody in that scenario? I think like, would they take back, because you need them to deduct the tax. You don't want to give up Trey Lyles. You could give up PJ Dozier. You could give up Matthew Dellavedova. I don't think they'd want to give up KZ Okpala, but would you do something like that to get Matisse Thybulle, where it's, you're taking on some money this year, but you have just a ton of room under the tax? And so, like, let's just say it's, unless you think that, Metu is someone who has played for them,
right.
But he's averaging under 10 minutes a game in the month of January. So would you do Metu and Terrence Davis just to get Matisse Thybulle? And then I mean, like the Kings like shooting, and in theory, that's what Korkmaz could provide.
Yeah, and I think the upside or the situational viability of someone like Tybal, even though his stock is down, certainly from a couple years ago when it seemed like he was going to be a perfect role player if he could shoot league average from three on decent volume. I would probably go for that if I were the Kings, just because like Davis actually has some value, but I think he's a little superfluous with like you have Monk to run second units and be kind of the spark plug guy. He's a different player. Davis is the type that he's sort of Josh Hardy and like his board crashing and that kind of thing, although he's smaller. But I think Tybal for sure would possibly, if it all worked out, would bring something that this roster absolutely doesn't have, which is a guy that just causes havoc, is deflections, blocks, steals, and then you're triggering, if that goes well, you're triggering a transition attack that's already really, really dangerous. So that like the fit there makes a ton of sense.
Do you like that deal better than the Crowder one for them, or do you like the Crowder one better?
I mean, I think well, that's a good question. I think I like the second one better now that I have to think about them in, compared to one another, just because Crowder, like how much different is Crowder than Harrison Barnes really?
I think, and Tybal can do like point of attack stuff or like
Yeah,
more truer wings, where Crowder's like sort of a bigger, burlier defender.
right.
I
And he
know
may
that.
be at the stage of his career where he's not that much, he's not that great of a defender to where he's even helping you if he's not making like 38% of his threes, which that's gone up and down too.
Right, and you can play Tybal with Barnes and Keegan Murray. You can't really do the same with Crowder. I will say you could play Crowder with Davion Mitchell. You can't play Tybal and Mitchell together, I wouldn't think.
No, that would not. I don't know where you're getting your shooting and your offense from there. I guess if you have Fox and Sabonis, you could make a lot of things work, but
right,
boy, that'd be congested around those two if you didn't. That's what works with the Kings is they put shooters around those two guys and just the offense hums. If you don't have if you have two guys out there that aren't going to really be honored, off the ball, that makes it tough.